This is the second session in a series of 5 about communities of meaning, conducted by a team sponsored by the University of Divinity and the Christian Research Association. The speaker for this session is Dr. Fleur Creed. Fleur completed her doctorate 3 or 4 years ago, looking at the impact of church welfare programs and how they could have an impact on local communities. She did some case studies with a number of churches in different denominations and used the conceptualization of social capital to analyse her data. Fleur has worked in a number of areas, including counselling. She's now involved in several research projects, including one on rural churches in Queensland. And she lives in a small rural community. She did the largest number of interviews in our study and added much valuable information. In doing analysis, she noticed the different patterns of moving into retirement, and she'll speak about those now. Transitions into retirement.
Hello, everyone, here and online. Okay, so what I found, I think we tend to, in the past, have looked at retirement as the conclusion of a productive life. But that's not really so. It may more accurately be described as a major life transition, characterised by a search for a new identity and sources of meaning. As the scaffolding of an individual's working life is dismantled, there is a need to reconstruct a new framework for their days and sense of self. We're now looking for these issues: meaning and purpose. There's questions about meaning and purpose, and they become more urgent as age-related changes occur. Social connections. Relationships with family, friends, and communities take on a more significant role for well-being in later life. Demographic changes, increased life expectancy and healthier years in retirement create new opportunities and challenges, including a greater variety of experiences, prolonged roles, and the potential for an extended period of old age. Social contexts. Work, education, leisure, volunteering, relationships, and spirituality are all key sources of meaning. Challenges and opportunities. Remaining in place is often preferred to maintain social connections and independence. Residential changes are often difficult. Evolving relationships with children and grandchildren play a significant role in later life. Productive ageing. This concept emphasises the importance of continued social contribution through work volunteering or other meaningful activities. Freedom from obligation. Retirees who come from high-pressure roles may enjoy freedom from the burden of commitments, whereas others struggle with boredom. More retirees travel regularly, some for extended periods of time, preferring shorter, project-based activities. This is in contrast to the longer-term obligations of previous generations in service clubs and churches with rosters and things like that. Retirement can be fulfilling or challenging, depending on the reconstruction of the previous life. So basically, we're looking at a dissolution of the professional scaffolding, or the scaffolding of the life that we used to lead. So as a person's working life finishes, their retirement brings an end to their structured professional identity, leaving a void where daily routines and social status once existed. Days are no longer defined by hours of work, meetings and appointments, and weeks no longer are divided into working days and weekends. Social status and identity can no longer be defined by role or job description. The transition phase requires an active creation of new daily structures and purposes to replace what's been lost in the move away from paid employment. It may include both structured engagements, including organised groups and voluntary roles, and unstructured informal activities with families and friends. A coffee, looking after kids, grandchildren, just doing things that you want to do. So it's a new architecture of life. And it needs to be designed, constructed purposefully. It's not just something that happens. You can't just give up work one day and then decide, well, it's just going to happen. It's not just going to happen. It needs to be purposefully constructed, or as one of the interviewees said, it's going to be the sort of friends that you have who plan a holiday and then come back and say, I'm bored. What now? I'm bored. So we need to plan what's going to happen with our lives to have a good retirement. The things that this life needs to be constructed of are contribution, giving back, connection, which is the antidote to what Robin just spoke about, loneliness and isolation, recognition and value, feeling seen, mattering, and growth. We need to reshape our identity through learning, using our brains still, not just letting them vegetate. We have a psychological need for contribution. And one of those things is, as many of our interviews said, is finding a cause. It reinforces our competence in what we used to do in the past and combats boredom. Many feel the need to give back to the community in either a structured or an informal way. One participant, who is a very active retiree, said that many of his friends are always bored. He told them, find a cause. Some retirees use their professional skills in the community. They take on roles on committees where they have skills and knowledge, and this also gives them a sense of purpose and reinforces their competence after they've left the workforce. Organising events and mentoring young people is another way of making a valuable contribution. These examples that I've mentioned here, they are examples who were finalists in the Senior Australian of the Year 2026 finalists, James Curry and Malcolm Benoit. James Curry, a sound designer, worked on iconic Australian films like Breaker Morant, Wolf Creek and The Light Horseman, winning multiple awards. He's enjoying his later years by passing on his expertise and knowledge to the next generation of professionals and students. Malcolm Benoit tried volunteering briefly at Life Without Barriers and the Australian Red Cross before he joined the Bureau of Meteorology. But once he found his niche, he organised a group of volunteers to digitise handwritten records from the 19th century, with over 90,000 charts and documents digitised over the past 20 years. These records help scientists track weather patterns and how the climate's changing. So these are just two examples of retirees who've done something purposeful with their lives. Participants in our study participated in volunteering roles in church and community groups for bereavement, play groups, prayer and Bible study groups, choirs, food banks, op shops, community gardening and various others. Some were involved in advocacy groups for climate change, First Nations people, LGBTQI+, and health-related and political causes. A few were part of larger scale organisations like Rotary, Lions Clubs or the Freemasons. But most were involved in smaller local groups or online activities. Many retirees use their skills helping family and friends in undocumented actions. Babysitting, cooking, helping build or renovate homes, teaching young people to drive, and many, many other activities. But they're doing something productive with their lives, helping others. And I think you'll find that most people do something to contribute in some way. connections as the antidote to isolation. The loss of a workplace requires that the retiree actively choose to connect with others. It becomes of particular importance for single retirees, especially on the loss of a spouse, which happens inevitably for those who've been married or with a partner of some sort, either through death or separation. Whereas the workplace provides a form of bridging social capital, offering some support at difficult times, these connections, even if loose, no longer exist on retirement. While the pursuit of physical health is of vital importance to this age group, social connection is a key function of many physical activities. Walking groups, and golf groups foster social connections and friendships where emotional bonds can form to provide support and combat loneliness. This is even possible with online groups where a high level of sharing occurs. So whereas in the past you've had the support of a close network through work in most cases, that disappears. You have to make that choice once you are retired. Now, recognition and value. When you're working, you receive that as part of the deal, basically. When you're paid, you receive money. You do the job, get paid. Basically, you will also receive possibly bonuses. You may receive thanks, hopefully. You may receive some other rewards. You may not. But basically, it's a transactional thing. Finding recognition in the post-career life is varied and a major adjustment for many. Used to the transactional nature of work, bonuses and promotions as forms of recognition, the absence of recognition can erode one's sense of belonging, making us feel we don't matter. As one participant articulated, explicit forms of recognition include expressions of thanks, awards, and other positive feedback, which occur with volunteers and group members when their contributions are valued. So that does occur in the volunteer world. Not in all cases, but somewhere along the line in most organised volunteer organisations, you will at least receive thanks. And there are sometimes awards, but at the very least, rewards are often intrinsic. People feel valued because of the changes they see from the contributions they make. You may just help somebody and see that it's made a difference. That may be as good as it gets, but it is worth something. Now, this is a very important one once we leave the workforce, and to keep us able. There's the physical side, but there's also the intellectual side. Intellectual identity and continued growth. Cognitive decline is a concern for many, especially for those who've watched the life of an elderly relative or friend diminish through senile cognitive decay. Today, pharmacies display shelves of products to enhance brain activity, and numerous brain training apps and programs are available. This intellectual engagement promotes brain elasticity and helps retirees maintain a sense of identity. So ideally, better that we organise it ourselves and don't hand it over to somebody that we're going to pay money to, please. Activities and groups chosen by retirees are often for intellectual stimulation. At the University of the Third Age, a range of courses are available across Australia. That's obviously dependent on the local teachers. So if you join one, you can also teach something. So that's a better activity for you again. Join and teach. That's the whole plan of U3A. Some of those mentioned by participants included writing, philosophy, cryptic crosswords, and languages. So there's lots of things you can learn depending on the availability and the location you choose. Others join genealogy groups where they exercise their brains researching and problem solving in the search for information about ancestors' lives. There are lots and lots of things that you can do for your brain, but it's necessary for you to actually do something, not just sit at home. Sudoku, of course, there's lots and lots of puzzles and things that you can do, but there's ways of doing it in a group. Now, ideally, there are a range of things that you need to do to make yourself holistically healthy. And these are the divergent pathways to meaning. First of all, there's what we'll call the professional pivot. Retirees may experience a loss of self when they cease work, when they don't hold a role or a recognisable status. You know, we often introduce ourselves as, oh, hi, I'm a lawyer, or hi, I'm a researcher, or I'm a whatever it may be. I'm a doctor, I'm a dentist, whatever. So this can be ameliorated by applying your professional skills in new contexts, preserving your identity and sense of meaning. Now, some examples of this would be barristers, teachers, project managers, accountants, editors, property consultants, whatever, IT experts, and whatever, who provide their knowledge and expertise on a voluntary basis or in a mentoring role. And many times this happens in community organisations and associations, on committees, doing this sort of stuff in a voluntary capacity. And many of those associations that are desperate would love to have the skills of retired people helping them. The spiritual and reflective transition. Often at about this time of life, there's an important shift in focus that takes place for many. It's a change from a life of busyness to a time for more reflection. We have more time on our hands, so people find they enjoy spending time in nature or in quiet pursuits like contemplation, journaling, prayer. A person may find more time for the faith they've tried to maintain during their working years, finding they have a deeper personal relationship with God or whatever, and they spend just more time in reflection. Spiritual reflection takes on a new level of importance at this time, and they foster a greater sense of acceptance, peace, and personal meaning. Now, also, none of these things are exclusive. These are just things that become more important to people to consider at this time. You can link up all of these things together, but they are the different pathways that people need to be considering or tend to follow. Now, the social network, social and active networking, this is just something that people start to think about. It's unsurprising that males are more comfortable in a connection doing something else alongside another male. They often engage in activities that provide rest for them, rather than they don't like the emotional turmoil of going through deep conversation usually, whereas females are happy to do that. As I've mentioned here, walking dogs, as we've already discussed, often is a way of introducing relationship. Now, here I've looked at the solitude, the introverts and extroverts. Most people, because we did discuss this in our research, most people are along the continuum. Some prefer to be spending less time with people and having a few deep personal relationships. Others like to be surrounded by people. Most people are along the continuum, we found. There are significant barriers for some. Basically, physical limitations. During this period, people start to find physical limitations in how they can participate in things. It might be their own limitations, or it might be the limitations of those, their spouses or whatever, personal or chronic illness or other sort. It could be mental or physical. They also could have caring relationships for family members that limit them, geographic, transport, distance, whatever. Sometimes they have found difficulties with certain things they try to join, you know, maybe relationships in the groups. It could be clique dynamics. It could be that they have been burnt out by too much pressure in groups. And then sometimes lack of digital skills or lack of technology. Now, one of the things that was, between my personal research and what we found in the research was that some of the people, there is something now called the caravan effect. Now, people are liking to, well, we all know the people who do go on holidays. It's not necessarily caravans anymore. It might be a motorhome, it might be going on overseas trips or whatever, but people do like to travel. They like the freedom of being able to go off whenever they feel like. They like to be able to just pick up and go. I mean, not everyone goes constantly, but some people do. They like to do the lap, or they like to be able to go off overseas when they want to. So what this means is that they don't want the indefinite long-term commitment to being on a roster every week, 52 weeks of the year. So it does damage the type of relationship with service clubs and rosters and the type of voluntary commitment that we used to have in the past. And what that means is that for projects and organisations that we, you know, they're finding it difficult to find people to fill the gaps for the under 80s, which is basically our target age group, the baby boomers, the under 80s. They're not finding volunteers because these people want project-based. They want something that they can do in 6 weeks or something. They're happy to volunteer for things that are short-term projects. Also, what we call the sandwich generation. They are often looking after ageing parents and grandchildren. So this is something that is a problem for organisations wanting to have volunteers and for the people wanting to volunteer because they have got commitments. They want the freedom of being able to take off whenever they want for their holidays, and they also need to be able to balance their caring responsibilities, as I'm sure many of you have those issues. Now, whatever timing it is, I'm just rolling along here, so I'm doing my own thing. So anyway, whatever, Philip. Okay, so this is my synthesis of an active construction of a meaningful life. First of all, we need to align our personal values and skills with the community roles we take on or with the groups or whatever we participate in. We build a meaningful life by matching our intellectual, social and spiritual needs with the community objectives that suit our temperament and skills, and that's how we foster a sense of purpose. We need to diversify our activities for a meaningful life. To maintain our cognitive and emotional well-being, we need to engage in a suite of activities, including intellectual pursuits, social groups and reflective practices, and include in-person and digital connections to make sure that we're actually on board with what's going on in the world. And enriching retirement is sustained by flexible participation across different groups, allowing us to adapt to life changes and avoid isolation. The most resilient retirees invest in a mix of activities, diversifying our portfolio of meaning. The thing is, life changes. Nothing is static. What we do when we're 65, 70 will be different from what our life looks like at 80. You know, what we can do when we've got a partner and we can drive the car and we can go to this group and that group, it might be the Movie Makers Club and it might be the whatever it is, the walking group and whatever. might be very different to what we can do when we can't drive a car anymore and we don't walk as well. So we need to build in groups so that when one falls away, another one picks up the slack and we find a different group to do whatever. So, but we don't want to lose all our friends because all we do is the movie makers group and we can't drive there anymore. You know, we need to have a balance in our lives so that we have things that we can do and pick up other things. And the thing is that all of these things that we belong to, we have built in because, yes, and we need to have the informal things too. The things that, I'm sorry, I haven't got to that, but we need to have a group of things that will support us of different levels of social capital, looking at bridging and bonding social capital, the close, strong connections and those that are not as strong, so that we have a strong support network around us as we age. We need to embrace a learning mindset. If we adopt a lifelong learning approach, we're better placed to maintain cognitive health, adaptability and relevance to the world around us. Cultivate the informal. The nurture of strong informal social ties with family, neighbours and close friends is important for emotional support and a safety net. As we age, we need to have that strong informal social net around us, the strong ties with people who care about us. And it won't just be family. It needs to also be those neighbours, the neighbours who see us if we're not on the street every day walking the dog. They're the ones who'll see us when we're not there. And as I've mentioned here, be adaptable. As circumstances change, we may need to adjust our goals and activities to align with our current physical, emotional and social resources to sustain a meaningful life. It may mean joining a card club or just a coffee club, whatever. Maintain relationships and maintain an active life, even if it's not the golf club or the walking club anymore, it may be the coffee club. You may still be able to go to a book club, whatever. Okay, implications and recommendations. Flexibility is crucial. Shift away from rigid schedules to accommodate diverse lifestyles, especially for those in that caravan and sandwich group. You know, if you have to cancel something that, you can. Nobody's making you do anything anymore. That's the beauty of retirement. Nobody's making you do anything. You can do whatever you like. That's the beauty of it. For organisations, lower the barriers to entry by creating accessible and non-demanding opportunities to encourage participation without overwhelming responsibilities. We all know the organisations, associations, churches, that immediately you join up, they want you to be running something, managing something. We don't need that. In retirement, we do not need that. Sometimes we just want to volunteer. We don't want to be the team leader straight up with those responsibilities. We need to encourage retirees to find and commit to a meaningful cause or mission that aligns with their values to maintain engagement and to avoid boredom. You don't sign up to something just because it sounds like a good idea or because your friend's doing it. Find the cause that suits you personally. And emphasise the expansion of social and intellectual worlds to enrich retirees' lives. Find something interesting. It might be a new language. It might be, I don't know what. It could be anything. Learning about a new place, learning about something new, anything. You can sign up at U3A for almost anything. Try it for a term, whatever. If you don't like it, do something else. I'm a great advocate for family history. It's yours. It is your own, and there's lots of things in it. Feels the need for companionship. You make new friends. You actually get to do a lot of research, problem solving, because you find out whether it really is the person from your family or whether it's somebody else's family. You do a lot of finding out stuff. Anyway, it's a great thing. You meet a lot of people. And encourage succession planning, because I know we think about that in terms of work, but in volunteering too. We need to train other people up in the roles that we have. We need to be sure that we are ready to hand over to others. And also in our own personal life changes, ensure continuity, be ready. One of the participants actually was planning for where his wife would live. You know, we need to be preparing ourselves and those around us for when changes will happen. It's a positive thing, not a negative thing. In conclusion, the transition to retirement requires a significant life adjustment, necessitating an intentional reconstruction of routines and personal identity. The process involves the establishment of new structures, the cultivation of social connections, and engagement in activities that are congruent with personal values. It also entails participation in intellectually and socially meaningful pursuits, essential for promoting ongoing learning and psychological well-being, facilitating a healthy and fulfilling post-career life.